Okay, we're here, and we're going to talk about incentives. And the chairman of our committee is not able to make it, but we found a substitute. Terry's going to walk us through whatever he has.
Thank you. I'm going to pass these out real quick. Let's go to the council.
Yeah.
The honorable attorney.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for coming out. As you know, we had I was charged with putting together an incentive package, and we talked about that at the last meeting. And so what I have before you, there's a booklet there before you, and let me explain a little bit about it if I could before you get too far into it. These are the incentive options that we talked about. I did not go into options that the council really has nothing to do with. For example, a reception dinner or a reception luncheon or any of that, because it's not something that's pertinent to council action. It's paid for and done by others. So the only thing you're gonna see here really are those issues that deal with the council, and the council will have to make decisions of some nature. Also, I was told that the more information, the better. And so I have in here on most of these, the statutes, or in one instance is an attorney's opinion, because it was much easier to understand than the statutes are. But I also did not put in some things that you're already doing. I didn't put in the TIF because you already do TIF. I didn't put in the enterprise zone because you have an enterprise zone and utilize that. And I didn't put in IRBs because, again, you already do that. So everything else is basically would be new stuff, and things that we need to be able to offer. So if you would, if you'll go over to where it starts with site location incentives. Mark and I met and worked on all of these and came up with what we think is our ideas. Obviously, they're subject to change. You all have, obviously, the ultimate change. So what you see here is what we would recommend, but it's not set in stone, obviously. However, saying that, I would tell you that price values, things of that nature are pretty, they're flexible, but they need to be kept within reason for us to be able to do anything. The industrial park, which is the city land, we recommend that the value of that land be priced at $35,000 an acre. However, we would recommend that that would be the value priced, but we'd actually recommend that you sell it at $20,000 an acre. Again, I would keep that flexible for you all. You all would have to make that decision. Now, there's some basis. This is based on several criteria. One being, for example, as you see there, we mentioned a base of 20 to 50 jobs at $12.50 an hour, and that's where we came up to $20,000 an acre. There should be some consideration, and it's a hard thing to do, but there should be some consideration in there for capital investment. A lot of these companies today are investing a tremendous amount of capital, but their employee numbers may not be as high as you would like. The more, and we're gonna see more of that, you're gonna see that just increase at a fast pace, because it's automation. In automation, there are more jobs lost to automation than there is to all the jobs that are shipped offshore, so, and it's going to get more and more. Matter of fact, I will tell you, in St. Joseph's, just a few months back, there's one of the companies where they're expanded, and I'm thinking, and I apologize, I can't remember the exact number, but it was well in excess of $12 million, I think closer to $20 million worth of investments. They offered Chapter 100 bonds for that, so they could get a tax abatement on that, and they, out of that and all of that, they got 0 jobs. But they helped retain the jobs that they had, so that was a great value too. You're seeing more and more and more of that. You're seeing much larger investments, a lot less jobs, so that's why we put that in there. Based on 50 jobs or plus, and all these have to have benefit packages, I might add. Or someone with a much higher wage, you might look at that price of land, it could be negotiated. That is not something you have to give me permission to do today, obviously. That's something I would bring back. It would be helpful if your city manager had some leeway in there to look at that. But we can answer that question. If you remember, I told you they always come back with an answer, how much for the land, whatever it may be. We can say, based on this, there may be a lower price and go on. We need the property drawings available to the client electronically. We need the Phase 1 environmental studies provided to that client electronically. And I've talked to Mark and sent him a gentleman's name for the archaeology studies, or as in the business we refer to them as cultural studies. That's to check and see if there are any dinosaurs, or if there aren't any Indian burial grounds, whatever it may be. And that needs to be run out at the new property just absolutely as soon as possible. So, I don't know how you really want to handle this, if you want to ask some questions on this, or if you want to wait till last. We can do it either way. No preference, we'll just wait till last and come back. Infrastructure and permitting incentives. We need to be able to have the utilities to the park site. Depending on the quality of the prospect, you also may want to consider running utilities to their site. This is quite common to do. We need to fast track all licensing and permitting. When I say that, I don't mean that we skimp on permitting or whatever it may be. We just need to, I'll give you an example. I had a project one time, and I went to planning and zoning. They said, well, yeah, we meet quarterly. Well, I just missed a quarter deadline, so they wanted me to wait a quarter before we could do this. Well, that's not acceptable. You need to be able to call it in and be able to make those decisions and make them quickly. And I gave you an example of Riverside. They permit their prospects in their industrial area in a 2-week turnaround, and I would highly recommend that. If Riverside can do that, Cameron can easily do that. If we do, why don't we just, these are the ones that deal with the property and everything else before we get into retail and industrial. So if you've got questions, why don't you go ahead and fire those away at me on these 2 issues.
All right, I've got a couple questions.
Sure.
That you're surprised.
I would hope so.
Good. Just when I'm looking through here, so $12.50 an hour. Where did you come up with that as far as a job rate? I mean, what was? Because I'm looking at that going, that's barely above poverty line.
True.
So I'm just trying to figure out.
But it's better than the $9 that they usually want to pay. And I'm not being
Okay.
smart aleck about that.
No, that's fine.
Matter of fact, that was probably the hardest thing that Mark and I looked at.
Okay.
And this was really pretty scientific. The way we came up with it is, we just came up with it.
Okay,
And the reason being is that truthfully, a big part of your wages are in the $10, $12 an hour range. That's what they're offering.
right,
Now, they'll have other jobs, Councilman, that may be 16, could be 20, depending on the job classification. But the overall jobs, they're usually lower.
okay,
I thoroughly recommend that if someone comes in and says, we are going to pay minimum wage and provide a very skimpy package, we'll be glad to have them, but we're not gonna give them any benefits.
okay.
I mean, I just don't think that's, I'm like you, I would, and Mark and I talked about it, we would much rather see this rate, honestly, closer to a $20 hour rate,
Right.
but they're not out there. Those take a special industry anymore, and,
What do they come in with? Skilled,
skilled labor's higher.
yeah. But you don't mix that in with this $12.50.
Well, if they come in and they're gonna tell us what they're gonna pay. I mean, they tell us automatically. When I get a deal, they'll say, normally, it's not always the case, but it'll have the wages. I just got one, at the end of last week, it was $40,000, they gave me a yearly wage, average of $40,000 a year. That was a good thing.
Mhm.
If they're skilled wages, they pick the wage anyway, so
They'll tell you.
they're gonna be much higher than $12.50, yeah, absolutely.
So is that an average of all the jobs? So, or is that just saying, we're just assuming that they have at least 20 to 50 jobs at 12 and a half?
That would be my,
At the minimum, and then everybody else can make more?
right,
Okay, okay, because I just wanted to make sure on the average with that.
sure.
And then, I just
And
don't,
another part of that is gonna be your benefit package.
and that was actually the next question I had for you. Said that you wanted to require a benefit package that would include, but not limited to, health insurance, availability, vacation, 401, and so on and so forth. So, having worked in quite a few different industries, I know I've had everything offered to me from, every one of these things was available, but I had to pay 100% out of my pocket to do it, to situations where I had, well, probably my best job with all the availability. I probably was getting 95 to 98% of everything paid for. So there's a huge
There is.
difference. How are we going to say, you know, we need you to spend at least an additional $5 on benefit? I mean, how do you look at that?
Well, as a whole, and the state's looking at this very hard as well,
Mhm.
they require that at least 50% of your health benefit be paid by the company. I think, you know, you get to, this is the beauty of it, you get to kind of pick what you want.
Okay.
I just offer what you
Sure,
tell me
no,
to do.
that's great.
And I would highly recommend that they pay a minimum 50%.
Okay.
You know, they offer the vacation, almost all vacations are 2 weeks and up now.
Right.
Unless you go to Australia, it's an automatic 7 weeks. 401K or some form of retirement. Now, their percentage of what they pay, there's nothing we can do to change that.
Right.
I will tell you that they're not, most of them are not paying their max.
Right.
Most of them are paying in the, between the 3% and the 5% range.
Okay.
So, you know, some companies may give you, which is nice, may give you sick leave, some companies have no sick leave. And some of the bigger companies have no sick leave. Some are amazing, some are getting to be a policy now where it's kind of unlimited. And you find out people aren't actually taking advantage of it, same with
Right.
vacation, they're not taking advantage of it. But I
Yeah.
think we're a ways off here, that's more of a coastal mentality, and so those are the type
Okay.
of things on benefits.
I do have another question.
Fire away.
On the commitment, what type of commitment are we gonna require from a company that's gonna come in if we're going to offer these incentives? Are we looking at a 20-year, a 50-year? What type of commitment can we require that's normal, and then maybe even that would maybe help entice people to come?
I lost you on the enticement part.
Well, I'm saying if a normal is 50 years, if we're able to do, say, 35 years, or if it's normally 20, which is, my guess is it's probably 20, but, you know, should we look at doing 15 because of where we're located? And just what can we do to get the fast track to get them here?
Well, your commitments of what you're referring to, I think I'm understanding this correctly, would be, for example, which we haven't got to yet, but for example, if you do abatement for chapter 100 bonds or enterprise zones or whatever it may be, that commitment usually runs until that commitment is paid off. After that, they're on their own.
Free to go?
Mhm. And let me dispel this, because I think it gets a bad rap, and it really is a bad rap, it's just not a fact. I think, and not to say it doesn't happen, I didn't say that, but I think when you hear people say, well, they'll come in for the tax benefits, as soon as they're done, they're gone. That's not true. It's just not, yes, has it ever happened? I've had it happen to one that I had, as a matter of fact. But the capital investment for these companies today is just so large. I mean, it's real easy for a company with 10, which we all say we want a whole bunch of those, that's true, we do, but a company of 10 can pack up and move overnight, as I've seen happen. I mean, you go there the next day, the building's empty. So the fact that they're gonna just get a 10-year tax abatement, and then in the 10 years and a day they leave, or 11 years they leave, is just not, that just does not happen very, very, very often.
Especially if they got any investment in it.
Yeah, if they've got any investment at all, they just don't do. And even in, especially today's world, even in the employment end of it, it's, they want their employees there because they're so hard to find and so hard to train. Your turnover rate is what kills you.
Right.
And so they stay. So let's just say that we gave, when we get to this other part with chapter 100 bonds, we gave on the building a 25-year or 20-year tax abatement, which is pretty similar to what most enterprise zones are doing now. And they've got those bonds. They have two choices. If they leave, they have to pay that bond off immediately.
Right.
So you tie it to and you want to tie it to employment numbers. Otherwise, you want to say you must hire and maintain a minimum of, now, when we talk about 20 to 50 jobs, you don't want to do the 50, you don't want to say you must hire and retain 50.
Sure.
But if they tell you we want to hire 40 people, you say, okay, well, you have to hire 25 and you have to retain 25. If not, you put a clawback provision into it, and they have to pay you back those benefits.
Okay.
And they don't like that. Tough. You know, you gotta protect your community as well.
Right.
So,
Okay.
so that's kind of the commitment of how that would run. It's dependent upon what you're actually giving them in cash,
Okay.
or tax abatement, or whatever it may be.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Let's go to the financial incentives, that's always the popular one. Retail. You all already have tax increment financing. I will tell you, I think maybe you might want to consider, you have a pretty hefty application fee to start. You might want to consider lowering that. I really don't know too many places that have that.
What's that based on?
Well, you have to ask Mark, but I think most of it is just to pay for
We haven't hired the
their
attorney.
attorney.
So get a cheap attorney.
If they don't do the TIF, then we're out the money. Yeah, we could reimburse that, make it reimbursable.
I think that would be a route that you would want to consider, and that was a recommendation I was gonna make, is that that, if you go to the expense, whatever expense it is to get these people here, that they say, no, we're not coming in, then I think they owe you that money. It's kinda like the clawback provision. However, one consideration is, it's kind of a problem in that respect, is that if they go through everything and the tip board turns it down, then you kinda got a problem there. I mean, whose fault was that? And I know that actually has happened here, several years, many years ago. So, that's just something you need to work out.
Are they counseled, Mark, before they do an application, make sure that they know that they might get turned down, or
Yes.
likely to get turned down, or?
Yep.
Of course, you've got luckily for you, your city attorney's firm is excellent in this type of stuff, so. I just, and I don't mean to jip you out of your money, Mark, but I just think that initial fee is discouraging to some developers. And at the same time, I understand, but I think there's a way maybe to write it that you can at least get your money back if you backed out. Or didn't, they can even go through with it and not still go through with the project. I think you have to have time zone, or not time zone, but a time, placed on it that says you have to do this within 24 months, or commence within 24 months, something like that.
How much is it?
How much is the fee?
Was 13,000, and then it went to 10,000. About 10,000.
So that's my recommendation there with that. Chapter 100 bonds are used for all types of retail, or for certain types of retail, excuse me. And I have a kind of a personal opinion on this, and I guess it comes from experience, and I would only recommend that you do the Chapter 100 bonds on retail for building only. You can do Chapter 100 bonds for building, for M&E machinery and equipment. You can also, in retail, you can do Chapter 100 bonds, which makes them eligible for sales tax waiver on their building materials. I don't recommend that. When you're helping them out, you still have to take into consideration there are other existing businesses, and I think you need to be fair to them. Now, the argument is, well, I didn't get that when I started. Well, no, maybe not, they got it in other ways, as streets or anything else were already there, whatever, but I still think you have to be fair and to be able to do the other. To me, it's up to the council, obviously, but to me, it's not a fair deal to give them everything and not really be able to help much on the existing business. They are your lifeblood and your bread and butter, so. But I would certainly use the property tax abatement on that, and I would recommend 10 years at 100% and an additional 10 at 50% abatement on the building.
It's city, county, or just city?
City, county. Chapter 100 bonds be issued by the city. The county will be represented at the hearing, but it's a city.
What do you say?
Well, they have a say, but they don't have a vote, so.
So the 100s and the 353s can both be used for existing businesses as well?
350, yes, they can, and
Okay.
353 can be used, 353 is redevelopment. And
I saw that.
I'll give you a quick example. Let's say you had an old hotel downtown, or an old office building downtown, and somebody wants to come in and totally renovate it. That's what redevelopment means. Or you have a blighted area, very similar to your TIF or whatever. If you have a blighted area and you need to really fix stuff up, that's it. But the key word it really is redevelopment.
Right.
And I've used it. It's a great tool. And the same would go true to the Chapter 100 bonds as far as abatement policy goes. I mean, that's my recommendation. And but those are great tools to use for developers. Now, TIF takes care of a lot of that. Certainly the one confusing part about TIF is they think there's a tax abatement on the building. There is no tax abatement. Somebody's gonna pay a tax on that new building. Now, it may go to the developer and it may be used for his stuff to put all the utilities and all of that in, but there is no abatement on the TIF project, so. On this one, there actually is an abatement. Now, if you're a TIF, I don't mean to be confusing, but if I'm the developer and I'm putting in a project and it's TIF, and it's my development, and I'm doing it all, then I personally will have, my corporation will have to pay the property taxes, but my corporation's gonna get that property tax back. If you're a developer developing for others, the developer's gonna get that. And he's to use that for infrastructure gradings, all sorts of things like that. Community improvement district. This is usually used for retail. It actually can be used for other things, housing, anything that truly kind of has the word community to it. It's kind of gotten to be a lot more complicated than it was originally. A community improvement district and a transportation development district, you have to understand that both of these are actual government entities. They form their own government entity. And the council's role in both of those is really minimal, but has to be, and that is you have to get permission to do it. What they can do is they can add up to 1 cent sales tax in a community improvement district, transportation district as well. They can do a 1 cent sales tax, and they can also do a self-levy on property tax. And that goes to that entity, to that district. And, for example, community improvement district, you can, it can be used to help with your roads, if you want, or your parking lots, your lighting, signage, just lots of different things that would help that development. Now, you can use this downtown. Problem with it downtown is, I don't want to say it's a problem, but it's gonna keep your attorney pretty busy. It has lots of petitions you have to file, and you have to have a vote. So, I mean, it's a lot more complicated than if you just come in as a developer and just pick up a piece of property and develop it. You can do that pretty doggone easily. But it is beneficial downtown. So you can do that, and the transportation development district is very similar to that. It's set up as a designated district, as it states there, and it's used for transportation issues. We actually are looking at that right now. Mike has taken an active role in that, and they're looking at possible transportation development district out by the 36 I-35 exchange. And you can utilize, and that's been received pretty favorably. So, now, I believe it was Councilwoman Breckenridge that asked this question, to give some examples, and I didn't write it down, but I can give you some examples. Chapter 100 bonds are used all over today. They've kind of, in lots of ways, have replaced a lot of the old, and community improvement district both. They've kind of replaced a lot of the old TIF stuff. TIF is not used as much as it was, although it's still used considerably.
Still be blighted.
It still has to be blighted, yeah. But it can be, well, I think it's 3 classifications, but blight's the easiest.
Light's the most common.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen an economic area TIF really.
There is one, but and I'm trying to remember where it is, but it's a complicated son of a gun.
Yeah, I think there's one in St. Joe.
St. Joe has one.
Yeah, and then I know that there's talks of one down in Springfield, but I think that they've already nixed using just the economic development
Yeah.
area idea, because
Um,
one doesn't sound good, and two,
Yeah.
you know, just don't need a better reason than.
Blight is a good word.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with blight is that's in the eye of the beholder.
Mhm.
But it's gotten a lot tougher, because now you have to prove blight.
Yeah.
It used to be you just say it's blighted, but now you have to really go in and prove it. It's a lot more difficult. I've written those blight reports.
Yeah. We can thank that little old lady in the pharmacy in New Jersey for that, the Supreme Court case.
Yes, you can, yeah.
Little old lady didn't want to sell her house,
She did.
and she didn't, and she's lost,
She
but
lost.
they changed all the blight statutes.
Yeah.
But essentially, every legislature after that
Every-
happened changed it.
Yeah, everywhere went crazy. When I wrote that bill, the original one, it was
Yeah.
pretty simple. It was
yeah.
a 3-page bill. That was it. But, lots of communities using it. The one that's kind of unique is St. Joe, in the downtown area. They actually have the TIF district, the CID, and the Transportation Development District all in the same place. And it's down there by, if you're familiar with St. Joseph, it's down there by, the old Holiday Inn Hotel, down in that area. So, but CIDs are used, like I said, in just about, I can't say everywhere anymore. They used it in Kearney for the, price chopper. They used it in St. Joe for the price chopper. We've used it in, for Lowe's and all that, in Chillicothe.
So just know your groceries will cost you more.
Cost you 1 cent more. But what a nice store. So those are kind of the examples, transportation districts. I keep wanting to call it total transportation, because that's what they started to call that when we wrote all that, but, the transportation development districts, they're all over too. They're in Kansas City. Liberty, I believe, has one up there by 152. St. Joseph has them. Usually they're in larger areas than they are smaller areas, but they are available to any size community within reason. So. Industrial. State of Missouri waives their sales tax on electric and gas usage. I would recommend that the city and the county do likewise. Again, Councilwoman, there are several cities that are doing that now, waiving their end of it. This is one of the few ways that you can actually offer cash for industrial. You don't do that for retail. But, and just, you need to remember, retail and industrial are two entirely different animals, and, they're both out for everything they can get, but there's a big difference between the industrial and the retail as far as being fair, and as far as being really productive. But that would be my recommendation, that you do that. There's quite a few cities now that are doing it, but not all of them, so it does give you a deal.
Do you waive that cart latch on everybody or just individual?
I think I would tie it, no, you don't have to waive it to everybody. I would tie it again to your investment, to your jobs, to that. Now, one problem you've got, if you have a lot of industry, is what do you do about the ones you're already taxing? You take that off the books. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. So,
I'm also thinking, the one way we make money on industrial, for sure, is sales tax. No matter how many people they bring in or whatever, that doesn't guarantee us sales tax. This is guaranteed sales tax. I get and I understand why this is a good incentive, but it's just something I'm sitting there thinking, it's really the only way we have to ensure that we're gonna get something back.
Well, a big part of that is true. You would lose that on the electric and gas, whatever the numbers are.
Right.
But it kind of goes back, your attorney will appreciate this, kind of goes back to a lot of the incentives what we used to refer to as but for, meaning if you didn't do this, but for you doing this, they wouldn't be here. Somewhere, we have to have the ability to offer something of cash value to these companies, and that's one of them that's a possibility.
What's the
You're
period?
hoping you're gonna pick up whatever it may be in their wages as far as being spent.
What is the time frame for offering that? Is that for everything, or is it also?
You can, I mean, it's up to you. You can offer it for 5 years, or you could, you could offer it at 100%. 5 years, give it at 50%, and after that, they pay full tax. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Let them get started. and
Let them get started.
Whack 'em.
Whack 'em.
You wanna offer as much as you can for as short as you can to get them in here. And
But you need to give them, I mean, it needs to be lengthy enough that they feel it's beneficial to them. So, now, I will say this also is that, and I know it's hard to measure, but luckily we don't have to measure it, is it's only used on production, manufacturing production. It's not used on office space, it's not used on research space, it's just manufacturing production. And I'm not sure, I think you can do it on distribution. I don't,
Yeah, this would be our first client that would be waiving that, so we're,
I think you can use it on distribution, I believe. But you can customize it how you wanna customize it. So,
You know, we also have an industrial power rate, but that wouldn't be for like the distribution center, but it would be for a heavy manufacturing, because they use such a high amount of power, that if your cost of delivering that power is lower because it's such a high usage, you can lower that rate, but we do need to make sure that we're right with that. It's old, hasn't been used because we don't have that industrial user right now. We did have with, the old place out, yeah.
That's why it was developed.
So we need to make sure that thing is up to speed.
Well, if I understand it right, and you touched on this, but I want to just revisit it briefly. Even if we give this part of the farm away, if we're bringing in employees, those employees are spending, and we're generating sales tax on that, they're buying utilities from us, so, we may not be getting money on this part of the pie, but all the rest of it, we are, and it's a recurring stream of income, so it's not a one-way street the way I'm understanding it.
No,
Is that accurate?
Well, I mean, that's the hope. I mean, you don't know how many people are gonna live here, so you don't, and I don't know what your taxing policy is on, residential. But you would hope that there will be a certain amount of those people, and there will be, a certain amount of those people who will live in town. A major part of them regardless are going to shop here, so you're gonna pick that up. But, I mean, both sides are exactly right. I mean, it is one way to generate taxes, but it's also one of the few ways that the community has, because you don't have a bucket of cash, is to offer this, which is kind of a cash incentive. Chapter 100 bonds can be used on buildings and machinery. I recommend you do that. I recommend it's 100% on buildings for 25 years, and on equipment for 5 years, with the ability, the flexibility, to be able to go longer on their machinery for the right prospect. Does not mean you have to do 100% for 25 years. You can do 100 for 20 and 50 at 5, whatever it may be. But there again, you've got to find a way to be enticing to these companies, and you don't have, I made the same statement seconds ago, you don't have a bucket of cash to throw at them. So abatement is one of the first questions asked literally on prospects when they come in. They want to know immediately, what's the abatement? And it used to be, in rural areas, you could offer less, and then they found out, well, they don't have anything, everybody's getting when they originally wrote it, it was 100% for like 15 years and 50% for 10 years or something similar to that. Well, then they found out that they weren't being able to be competitive because places like St. Joe are handing you $250,000, $500,000 worth of cash. So in order to compete with them, you give them longer at that, and you're hoping that that cuts down on their cash. And so,
If they're leasing the equipment from somebody, who is they eligible for? Because I build a building, but I don't have enough money to put equipment in it, so they put the equipment in, and I lease it from them.
depends on where they're from,
What do you mean where they're from?
or the leasee is, or the person who owns the equipment and is leasing. And so that determines even though it's used here, it's determined on where they pay tax on it. That's gonna be a bigger legal question than I'm capable of right now.
I'm not sure about the leasing of equipment, because most of the time, in my dealings with Chapter 100s, the developers usually either already owned the equipment or is purchasing the equipment for that specific building and haven't, just surprising.
Now, saying that, let me give you an example. Matter of fact, we're looking at that right now, Mark and I have a project we're looking at a little bit. That would be a person who would come in, a developer who would, company XYZ wants to come in and set up a manufacturing plant. These folks that I deal with will come in and build the plant, put the machinery in it, and lease it all to them. So they would get the benefit, they being the developer gets the benefit of that abatement.
And then we'll have to see in there.
Yep, CMH was a Chapter 100. I think it was 5 years on equipment, I don't know on the other, I didn't put that, work on that, but it came in 07, it's hard to believe, 9 years.
5 years is a general rule of thumb, sometimes it's 7. I follow St. Joe and the Kansas City, St. Louis, Springfield markets pretty heavily. I notice they're starting more and more going to 7. Truly, it doesn't affect the school boards quite as badly as they want to say it does, because by the time you get on equipment past the 5-year period as a whole, it's already depreciated out. So.
Well, one thing that really stands out in my mind is this $12.50 an hour minimum. It really bothers me. I feel like you're trying to draw business in just to get in here, and then the people who start out maybe don't make the wages they are entitled to. Because we have places around here now that start out like that, and they may not be a factory job or whatever, but I don't know, I want to look out for our citizens also, not just the industrial park. I want to make sure our people are paid what they're worth, and if you start out at $12.50, somebody's gonna come going, oh, well, that's a low rate. You know, we'll come here because we got cheap labor.
If you look at the wage study that was done, you know, that's not too far off from what the wage study for the area, and you can look at that wage study.
Yeah, to get a workforce to drive from St. Joseph to here, it takes a minimum of 12 or 12.50. That was part of our
Right.
evaluation. of
Right,
that,
yeah, the wage study that,
It's not a lot of money, I know.
No, that's my only concern.
$26,000
If
a
we're
year
gonna make
plus
this
benefits.
town grow, we need to worry about our citizens too, our taxpayers and what they're gonna make. That's just my thought. I mean,
No,
for what it's worth.
No argument there. I mean, you're just hoping that there are a sizable amount of jobs that are 15, and there's a sizable amount that are 20. But again, you gotta remember that in factories,
Not sure if it's on.
many of them are coming in at $9, $10, and $11 an hour.
It's not very good.
Now, the higher skill, the more money, and that's who you want, is the higher skill. Even the warehouse and distribution, they're at 12.50, 15, 17.50 an hour. And that's not, those jobs, there's a misconception on those jobs too. Those jobs have changed in the last 10 years probably, considerably, because now, it used to be you could hire a guy or a gal and you could put them on a forklift truck and let them run it, or forklift, and let them run it and they go on. Well, that forklift used to cost them about $10,000 or up to $15,000. Some of these forklifts today are $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. And there's a lot more, and it's all electronic. I mean, they're just not hiring the guy that's gonna quit them in 2 weeks because they're searching out, they're gonna pay more.
Yeah, that was kind of the research I did on the fire district when we was doing the sales tax. $12 to $12.50 is about where I saw, and I reached out to Metropolitan, just kind of small departments and that type of thing, so that $12.50 was in the range. The thing that I saw in that was probably more was benefit packages. There was more wanted that, so I actually figured about 50% of the pay as a benefit package. So honestly, you're in the ballpark. I mean, it's from the research I did, and what you're comparing to here is pretty close.
If I recall, and I certainly stand to be corrected, my recall may not be quite as good as it used to be, but if I recall, I think the actual poverty level is closer to 19,000. That sticks in my mind. At 12.50 would be 26,000.
Family of four, poverty level 24.6 as of 2016.
For a family?
Family of
For
four.
a family. These
Family
are-
of four.
This is individual. So-
Right.
Yeah,
I'm just,
yeah, but I think the individual, if I'm not mistaken, I thought the individual was around 19 or something, but.
I will be honest with you, I only did family of three and family of four. I figured most of us.
What was 3?
3 was 20,420, and at 125% of poverty, you're looking at family of 3, 25,525, and family of 4, 30,000. So, but if we're figuring in benefits though, that can be a pretty big key addition with the cost of benefits today, especially
Absolutely.
healthcare, so.
Absolutely. Well, what I find also, I think it's kind of interesting, you will, if you go to a factory, and I'd almost bet you money if you went to Case New Holland, you'd find the same thing. The biggest part of the cars in the parking lot are gonna be pickup trucks. And the reason being is that a lot of these folks have 100 acres, 200 acres, whatever it is they've got, that they can't really support themselves on the farm, but they still want to farm. Well, they can work at the factory and still keep their farm and farm, plus it gives them benefits that they didn't have when they were on the farm. So, and that's really where you're gonna be drawing from, is that type of issue, where you have people coming in, which you want, and you're gonna obviously have people in town too that's gonna work. I think 12.50, that puts you at 26, certainly not as high as we want. You're gonna get a lot more of them that are gonna be higher. But I think the average person on the floor at 12.50 is gonna probably be about where we're gonna see most of the inquiries come from.
I think also too, quick, like I say something, I think a lot of it too is changing the mentality of the workforce and getting them off of all of the benefits and all of the things that we're guaranteed to have by not working, and change that mentality. Because we really fight that in our own business. The labor force, honestly, people don't wanna work. And they can sit at home, make more money than they can by going out in the workforce. So a lot of us gonna have to change the mentality of our community first, to make them want to work and wanna get back and be productive and see those things through. So I think that's a lot of it. And so it's a whole mixed bag of goods.
I agree with you on that,
Yeah, it's
100%.
It's crazy.
You know?
It's not getting any better.
No.
That's it.
We have 2 more to go in a short period of time, but the enterprise zone, I would recommend that we go to Clinton County and get that expanded to a larger abatement. It truly is out of date, and you already used the industrial revenue bonds. Matter of fact, you used them recently. well, not real reason, but use them for the hospital. And you already have that there. In the rest of your booklet for the council that has that, there's a, when you get past that, you'll see it, it says Roman Associates has got Chapter 100 bond, there's a green section, an orange section, a pink section, a yellow section, and it's with the paper that you see. So just, I'll tell you which one it is. Chapter 100s are in the green, the first one going down the line.
You're saying this is a little late night reading when we don't have anything else to do?
If you drank way too much caffeine at 10 o'clock at night, you can start reading. And I would have to also say, some of that is not totally complete, because I didn't, some of it, for example, the CID I used an attorney's description, because it jumps from spot to spot to spot to spot. So there's some of that in there, but this gives you the biggest focus. One other thing that's not in here, is very, very important, and that is, if you're really looking, I wish I was the one who made the statement to me, but I'm not. If you're really looking to help incentivize, one of the things a community can do most is their quality of life. And that's becoming more and more and more, and I think you'll hear that out of your engineers. Are gonna tell you the same thing probably they did us the other day. Quality of life, I used to kind of poo-poo it, for lack of better words, years ago. It wasn't quite as important years ago. It's gotten to be more important now. These companies have trouble, nobody knows this better than Joe Brute sitting back there. They have trouble recruiting their management people to come to rural areas. And one of the things they have to have, or they're not coming, or they're certainly not gonna live here. They may come and work at the hospital, but they may live in Liberty, which doesn't do us a whole lot of good, except for it does the hospital part. They have to have that quality of life for them with their family. So that in itself is a major, and now we're seeing it more and more, and they're talking to us more and more about it, so. We've got a few minutes, just 5 minutes or something. If you have any other questions, I'll be glad to give it a shot.
Okay, since no one else jumped in. Two more questions for you. How often do you visit with our existing customers, such as Case, and to make sure that we keep them? It's always easier to keep than it is to bring in new ones.
Well, absolutely it is, absolutely. I haven't visited with them, they had Case in Holland a couple years ago. I haven't visited with them too much, because the chamber has a program that they initiate, and they go out.
Okay. Okay,
Exactly, for that reason.
good.
And I have asked them to let me go with them when they do get an appointment set with Case New Holland, because that's manufacturing.
Sure.
But on the others, the chamber has, they're gonna go to all the businesses.
Actually, our last CNU meeting was at Case New Holland.
Oh, cool.
That was, last meeting,
All right.
so, and they're part of the rotation of CNU. Have been for a long time.
Good. I assume Walmart, all the others, anybody of significant size, and then you just kind of go down, is that how?
And you don't wanna skip any of them.
No?
Right, no, that's what I'm saying, I'm just wondering how you,
Takes a lot of time, and it takes time to get them to sit still and listen to you for 15 minutes. You know.
Right. okay.
I think, if I could just get on that, I think a lot of it though, I mean, you may go and visit, but you have, as a person, whether it be with the chamber or as an interested party in retaining your businesses, you have that relationship with those people, with that company, whether it be Case New Holland or Walmart or whoever, whatever business it is, you know.
Right.
I can pretty much walk into a business myself and call that person by name, you know, and if I don't remember their name, I recognize and they recognize me. So, you know, that's where you keep up that personality and that everything keep kind of moving on. It's just not that you just drop in one specific day and go
Oh,
talk
sure,
to them.
sure.
you know, and, you know, Casting Hall and Walmart and places like that. I mean, I visit those quite frequently. You know, I know those people by name and that type of thing. And whether it's me myself or representing the city from the fire department side or the Chamber of Commerce from their side, you know, that's what's important. I think that hits home more than if you set that appointment. Not that it's not important, but that really is what hits home to those managers, that you know who they are and you're able to take care of them and talk to them. And, you know,
Fair enough. Last question for you is, so the incentive package looks interesting to me. How does that compare to the other communities that you represent? I mean, are we, by doing this, will we be putting ourselves above? Is this getting us back to average where we should have been 3, 5, 10 years ago? Where are we at with this package? If we took your recommendations and just said, let's pass it.
It would put you in the lower tier of the middle. And I'll tell you why. There's an old saying, cash is king.
Okay. And you don't have that.
But, and you had brought this question up the last time, as far as, is there anything that's new out there?
Right.
Well, the true answer to that is, sure there is, but I don't know who's thought of it. And the second part of that is right now, we need to be able to utilize the tools that we have. We have these tools, but right now, we're not able to offer them.
Okay.
And that's, you know, that's one thing. The other thing is, there's all sorts of things you can come up with, but you can't offer them. You can give them free utilities, but you can't do that. I mean, you could, legally you can, but you'll go broke.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, there's just certain things. And the other part of that, as far as incentives go, the biggest bulk of that all comes through the legislature. And it may take anywhere from 2 years, which 1 year is the shortest, and that was industrial revenue bonds. We worked on that years ago. And TIF took us 2 years, others have taken a lot longer. And they usually come about because need.
Right. Okay.
Actually, the financial audit of the city the last 2 years has been very impressive. It's probably the best of the city in a long time. That last 2 years of their audit, very impressive last 2 years. So financially, you're doing a lot better than what you did a long time ago, I can tell you.
Mayor, you got someplace else to go?
Yeah, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you think of anything, holler back to Terry.